Hello and welcome to my speech 1315 Persuasive Speech. Today I'm going to be discussing why the Luka Doncic trade is the worst trade in NBA history in my opinion. Today I'm going to discuss the fall from grace the Mavericks have had since the February 1st trade. Then I want to follow up with Luka Doncic and his performance and excellent performances for the Los Angeles Lakers since the February 1st trade. And then I want to compare the Luka Doncic trade to trades of the past, some horrible trades, and one in particular that involves Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Paul George. But first, again, I want to discuss the Mavericks' fall from grace since February 1st. The Mavericks are 13-10 since the February 1st trade. That is significantly worse than the record before the trade, which was 26-23. Now, 26-23 is not a great record. It's above 500 for sure, but the Mavericks were looking to repeat their run to the NBA Finals. They weren't excelling like they were expected to, but that's largely to an injury to Luka Doncic on Christmas Day of 2024. When Luka was playing for the Dallas Mavericks, they were 13-9. When he was not playing for them, they were under 500. And since February 1st, they're 13-20. Kyrie Irving suffered an ACL injury, which was possibly due to the fact that Anthony Davis, when he was traded to the Mavericks, was injured, was out for a month and a half, and Kyrie Irving was tasked to pretty much be the main scorer of the team, which at his age is not ideal. He suffered an ACL injury on a drive to the lane, and the Mavericks have suffered since. He's out for the rest of the season, and a good portion of next season. He's not projected to be back until February 2026. So things have fallen apart for the Mavericks since the Luka trade. And on top of that, the Mavericks have struggled to put butts in seats. People are not showing up for these games. The attendance numbers are way down, and that's disappointing. As a guy that's a fan of the Mavericks, I've gone to many Mavericks games. To me, this is the most disappointing part, the disheartening and soul-wrenching part of the Dallas Mavericks is the fact that Luka is not on the court anymore, and Anthony Davis is not the same quality of player. He's also not the Mavericks guy. This picture is from Josh Bowe of the Mavs Moneyball, and these stats are from StatMuse. To continue, Luka Doncic has excelled extremely so since getting to the Los Angeles Lakers. On top of that, he had a 45-point performance against the Dallas Mavericks 2 weeks ago. He had 45, 9, and 8 rebounds, 8 assists. And he had 31 points at halftime. Anthony Davis had 12 points throughout the entire game. This picture here is from Reuters. They're a sports column, and this was their article about the Luka Doncic return to Dallas. He was very emotional. He was very emotionally charged. He had 31 points in the first half. He was incredible. A guy that the Mavericks gave up for no particular reason. Again, the full trade was Luka, Markieff Morris, and Maxi Kleber for Max Christie, Anthony Davis, and a first-round pick. And Max Christie is a bit of disappointment so far, and Anthony Davis can hardly stay on the floor. So this is a massive contender for the worst trade in NBA history, and in my opinion, it continues to prove every day that it is the worst trade in history. I want to discuss Luka's performance in other games, though. Since he got to the Lakers, they're 18-10. He's led them to the 3rd seed in the Western Conference. He's averaging 28 points, 7.5 assists, and 8 rebounds, which is technically worse than his Dallas Mavericks averages, but you have to factor in he was coming off a calf strain injury, which the Mavericks traded him in the midst of. And since then, he has returned to MVP form. If injuries hadn't held him back this season, he would absolutely be in the MVP discussion with guys like Giannis and Jokic and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who we'll talk about next. The Mavericks are on the board for possibly the worst trade in NBA history, but another terrible trade was Paul George to the Clippers for Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and a slew of picks, as well as Danilo Gallinari, who played a season for the Thunder and was pretty solid. But again, Paul George to the Clippers. The main piece was Shai Gilgeous-Alexander going to the Oklahoma City Thunder. This year, he is slated to be the MVP. He is the odds-on favorite. And the picks that were brought in to the Thunder from the Clippers turned out to be Trey Mann, who was a solid player who got traded to the Hornets, but he was great for the Thunder at the time, and Jalen Williams, who is now an all-star. This is widely considered the worst trade in NBA history, but I'm of the opinion that over time, Luka Doncic will be seen as the worst trade in NBA history, as you gave up a guy that is going to be a MVP someday, had led you to the finals and the conference finals in the last 3 years, and is a guy that you simply cannot replace in Dallas. So again, to wrap my thoughts up and in conclusion, in my opinion, the Luka Doncic trade is the worst trade in NBA history. because the Dallas Mavericks have fallen off the face of the earth since the trade. Luka Doncic has thrived in LA and has looked exactly what the Lakers needed. And in comparison to arguably the worst trade of all time, which happened in 2020, this, in my opinion, is much worse. So let this be a lesson for everyone around that sometimes a good thing can be going and you simply can't let it go. The Luka Doncic trade is the worst trade in NBA history. I'd like to thank Josh Bowe of Mavs Moneyball, and again, StatMuse for providing me with stats today. Thank you for watching, and have a great night.